Good. Okay, we get started. We are here today, Tuesday, July 26th, 2022. It's 7 o'clock. Regular City Council meeting. We have Councilmember Gosser, Bowers, Nelson, and Grover here in person, and Councilmember Ewald's online with us. Also online, did we have someone else online? Was that attorney? Okay. Eric Johnson's online, and then we have welcome everybody that is here tonight with us. Thanks for coming. We will start with a prayer or thought offered by Councilmember Gosser, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Father, I'd like to ask you at this time to please be with this council, with the mayor and the citizens of Blanding City, to please help this council make wise decisions, make good decisions for the city, for long-term and short-term. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for the waters you've blessed us with. We need it, and we're grateful for all that you will bless us with from this point on. Dear Lord, please watch over the city through these times so that people can learn to grow together and to become one. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for all these blessings. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will move to our consent agenda and minutes from July 12th, 2022. Approval of that.
Christian Olson's name is spelled wrong.
What page are you on?
Right? It matters. It's with a K-R-I-S-T-I-N.
Any other changes or corrections from the minutes?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for today's meeting, July 26th, and the meeting minutes from the Tuesday, July 12th, 2022 meeting.
Councilmember Bowers and Councilmember Nelson, all in favor?
Aye.
He said
Aye. Okay. I forget he's there. Can we hear him?
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Any conflicts of interest tonight? Seeing that there's none, we will move to our public input portion of our meeting. This is where any of the public that has attended tonight can talk to us. If you want to speak to us, just kind of tell us your name. We'll give you 3 minutes, and how about it? Whoever wants to go first.
Oh. I think I need you guys like handouts. Not because I'm super on top of it, just because I don't know how to sit these into 3 minutes. I apologize if I'm printed weird. We can blame Jamie because he is not here to defend himself. You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Never been more invaded in my lifetime.
Thank you.
Chris, I'll put yours in your box, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
You are so welcome. I don't want to be here. I actually very much hate being here. I don't like politics. They make me cranky and aggressive and exceptionally more aggressive than I ever mean to be because I'm very direct and I say exactly what I mean. However, I am incredibly grateful for the kind council members that I spoke to before. I spoke to most of you, but Chris and Kellen were exceptionally kind and helpful, asked good questions, answered all my questions, and really had good concerns. So I'm super grateful for that. As most of you correctly assume, I'm here to talk about short-term rental regulations and Blanding. I am not here because I want to be here. I am not here because I have a personal stake in short-term rentals. I was asked to be here by people who have concerns about the lack of Airbnb regulations in Blanding. I was asked to help come up with solutions. Solutions are what I'm really good at. I was also in the room when this topic was brought to council before, about 4 years ago. I wrote the article about it. I've done a crap ton of research. So they know I have things to say. But my solution today is actually really simple. I have a single question. I would love to know why short-term rentals are exempt from zoning laws and regulations that the rest of us are required to adhere to. I have 3 examples for you. The first one is that if you live in a residential zone and you have a home-based business, that business cannot occupy more than 25% of your home. It cannot occupy more than 25% of your home. That's city code. Most short-term rentals occupy 50 to 100% of a home. We don't know why they're exempt. Number 2, if you live in a residential zone, you cannot build a hotel or a motel of any kind. A motel or a hotel is housing for more than 3 people. Short-term housing, long-term housing is considered more than 30 days. We have those. Number 3, according to city code, if you own a business in your home, that business must be a clear secondary purpose of the home. The primary purpose of the home must be long-term residential living. If an entire home is turned into short-term rental, that is a clear violation of the code. Once again, why are short-term rentals not required to follow the city codes that we already have? Short-term rentals are not considered residential housing. They should not be treated as such. They are a business and are clearly defined as a business by the state. And they're even mentioned in the city code as boarding houses and rooming houses. The idea of a bed and breakfast is not new. There's just a website now, which made it more popular. That's it. Zoning regulations. A lot of people were concerned about government overreach when you talk about this. Council members were concerned about government overreach. Zoning regulations are either government overreach or they're not government overreach. They're not government overreach for some of us, but not government overreach for all of us. So we can either have the zoning regulations and apply them to everybody, or maybe we don't have zoning regulations. I'm not proposing more government control. I am just proposing equal zoning enforcement across all businesses. And I do understand that we've kind of created a problem by not regulating short-term rentals up until this point. And I'm a huge proponent of and advocate for local businesses and self-sufficiency. So I put beyond local enforcement, I have 1 sentence. Beyond equal enforcement of the codes already in place, I have the following amendment. I have the suggestion of the following amendment to the code, which is in your packets. The zoning regulations that I talked about, I also put in your packets too.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna put this in here.
Thanks.
Good evening. James Bayless. Quite a few of you know me, a few of you probably don't. I did send an email out to all the city council members addressing why I'm here tonight and addressing my concerns that pertain to the community as well and me as business owner. I won't go into that because of the short amount of time. I'm not here looking for more government control. If anything, I want to see less. I don't want government telling me what I can do on my own property. What I want to see is better oversight with the existing ordinances and statute, more frequent and equitable enforcement. Affordable housing, affordable long-term rentals, the proliferation of the Airbnb, and I'm not anti-Airbnb as long as it's done responsibly and respectfully within an R1 zone where we have young families and children, and they never know from night to night who might be occupying that short-term rental. That's going to be an ongoing issue and no real good solution on how to deal with that. And it's not by creating more government control. Government oversight needs to be done effectively and equitably. As I said, I'm not opposed to Airbnb as long as it is managed responsibly and respectfully. It has created an adverse effect for property owners. Our property values have gone up, therefore our property taxes have increased. And what long-term rentals are available have skyrocketed and created a situation, for lack of a better term, slumlords in our fine community. I have an experience with my cousin where they wanted to move back to Blanding, and the only option was a trailer. They hadn't seen it beforehand. When they moved here, it was in ramshackle condition, but yet they were forced to pay $900 a month. And who oversees that? Who inspects those buildings to make sure they're in compliance? I have to agree with my niece. I love her dearly. R1 zoning statutes permit, I don't agree with the way she had said in most cases, 25% of the residency. I can understand the reason for that because of the amount of foot traffic, if that business has foot traffic. But with e-commerce, we don't see that foot traffic. So why is it limited to only 25%? Does not make sense. And how is that enforced? Does that mean if I have an home-based business and I only have a designated part of my house for that home-based business, but I happen to be in my living room at the time and I am on my computer, am I in violation of that ordinance? I think that touches on everything as far as my concerns. I appreciate your time and consideration. I look forward to hearing from each of you council members individually and discuss what is in my email. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else here to speak to us? Okay, we will move forward. Reports. I don't think I have anything to report. Not that I know of. Does council have any reports today? Good. Okay. City manager report, David Johnson.
I just have obviously my regular project status update, but outside of that, I wanted to give you a couple other quick updates. One actually pertaining to our two public comments. So, but the first one is with the CIB application for the Wellness Center. I just received an email, I believe today, if not yesterday, this morning, yeah, saying that we will go before the CIB board on August 4th. It's, I believe, a Friday morning. They have like a calculation that tells us what we qualify for. So on now, their board members can lobby for more than that, but they try to lobby for more sparingly, if that makes sense, because they have a very objective way to calculate. So basically what the board has approved us to go before them is, I believe, for $29,000 in grant and $341,000 in loan with a 1% interest is what we've been approved for now. I believe the mayor has spoken with Commissioner Adams, yes, and I haven't even had a chance to talk to our finance director about this. So the mayor told Commissioner Adams that once I've had a chance to talk with Kim kind of a little bit more about that and what our actual application is, then maybe we can speak with him to see if it would be wise to try and push for something a little bit more on the grant side, or not, or if we just move forward as is recommended by their calculation. So there's that. Short-term rentals, the timing is really good, and I want there are two public comments to know that that's something that staff is also equally concerned about. Unfortunately, as we've discussed here recently, the legislature has passed protections with Airbnbs that have taken it a lot out of the city's control, irregardless of our city code. In fact, cities have been regularly sued over the past couple of years, which is part of why that legislation was put into place. However, with the League of Cities and Towns, I sit on a committee that is working with the Kim Gardner Policy Institute with the University of Utah to basically take hard data, not just subjective opinion, but hard data about how short-term rentals are impacting communities. In particular, so some of the data that they put together, which right now is kind of preliminary, and then this committee that we have statewide will be meeting to discuss issues, but San Juan County is listed as the 10th city in the top 10 list of most Airbnbs per population or per household, if that makes sense. And they only have 172 Airbnbs or short-term rentals, I should really say, 172 short-term rentals listed in San Juan County in 2021. However, we know that there's probably significantly more than that even since 2021. In addition, when I just do a quick scan of just Airbnb's website or just VRBO's website, not even all the other websites out there, there's well over 100 just on one of those sites, and not every short-term rental looks through every single site. And so those are the kind of concerns we have as well. And the city's hands, unfortunately, have been pretty tied. And so this committee is tasked with taking some of that data and making recommendations to the legislature on how to better resolve that. Because even though San Juan County is number 10, it makes me curious where the real numbers are just in Blanding City alone, if that makes sense.
Well, and I don't know if they did, but from what I could tell, they didn't factor into those numbers the amount of short-term rentals. And I don't know if there's a way to do that, but if your home compared to your overnight rental ratio is, 172, how many short-term rentals are there? I think, is that in there?
No, this is specific to
To
short-term
short-term.
rentals.
I couldn't find anything that showed long-term, because for me, that is the biggest concern that we have, is the amount of Airbnb's overnight rentals versus the amount of short-term rentals.
Yeah, right.
And if they would take that into consideration, I think we'd be a lot higher on that list, actually. But
Yeah, and so.
meaning- meaning the lack of short-term, the lack of long-term housing.
Yeah, well, we definitely agree. That was one of the things that raised my eyebrows, and I've mentioned this to council before. When I was trying to move here, I couldn't find anything to rent. It was so difficult to find anything to buy. And so I had people with Airbnbs said, oh, well, you can stay here, but the season's starting soon, so you can only be here for a month. And I'm like, well, that doesn't work. And so it really impacts the community, right? And so anyways, that's something that we agree is very concerning, and it's concerning across all cities. But one of the reasons why they asked me to be a part of that committee is they really want a voice on how it's impacting rural communities in a much different way than just the Wasatch Front, because it goes beyond just, who's next door to you and concern for kids. It goes to, there's not even enough housing for our own community. Because what you find is going on is someone maybe buys a home or builds a home, and then a domino effect. Someone else local buys that home, and the home on the tail end is flipped into a short-term rental, right? That's exactly the problem. So anyways,
And I have a meeting between the different mayors in San Juan County, so Monticello, Moab, Bluff, just the area. We're meeting next week, and this is one of our discussion items as well, is short-term rentals, because we're all different. Moab is obviously a lot worse on this, but I mean, the issue is still the same. And then the League of Cities and Towns president is joining us for that meeting as well. And she sits, I think, on that same committee as you with the vacation rental. So hopefully we can get some.
so the other part that I should probably add to that is it's really good timing that we just got the grant to update our general plan, which is basically the citywide master plan, because these kind of policies are exactly what it looks at. How do short-term rentals affect zoning, and how is that equitable with other types of businesses, such as home-based businesses, hotels, other things like that. And so the timing's really great, because we know this is ramping up for the next legislative session. We'll be working on our general plan during that same time. And so it goes well for us in being able to plan ahead and moving forward. So that's all I have.
Do you know where those, just to clarify first for myself and some of the people in there are, so part of the problem with issues that are brought up to the city and to me as a city council member are that often the state regulates things that people are not aware of, that we don't have a lot of control over. This is also one of those circumstances. Do you know where the new regulations for Airbnbs that the state has implemented can be found?
We can look up what the legislation is and send it to the council.
It's titled under auxiliary
Oh, that's right.
dwelling units.
Yeah, I want to
That's
say
right.
we
You look
shared it.
under Airbnbs or whatever, you're not gonna find anything. It's gonna be.
Auxiliary dwelling units. I remember that. Thank you.
Okay.
And sorry, I have one more question back on so I can just, on the grant for the wellness center, we had asked for 700,000, correct?
No.
or it was.
480?
And I can't remember off the top of my head. I'd have to-
480
I-
number sounds
Is it
correct.
480?
Yeah.
Why am I thinking
480.
700?
Well, originally we were budgeting for 700,000 because we didn't have all the estimates in for like the showers and things. But then when we started getting in the estimates, that was significantly lower. And
370 is what the total was. We asked for, or no, that's what they calculated.
yeah.
Somewhere around four.
Oh, no, so it was 370. So 149,000 grant with 221,000 loan
Which is what we
at a
originally asked.
15-year at 0% is what we asked for. And what they came back with calculated was a $29,000 grant and then the rest loaned for a 30-year at 1%.
Plus, I believe there was, it was either 100 or 100, and I'm sorry, I can't remember off the top of my head. It was 100 or 150,000 that we were going to match in savings as well.
Yeah,
So on top of that,
Yeah.
those numbers.
so that's what we asked for.
But it's 1% for 30 years.
We asked for 0% and their calculation is showing a 1% for 30 years. Now, nothing's final because their board doesn't meet till next week, but their calculation is showing that based on the information we provided in the project details, that it would fit at a 30-year 1%.
Yeah, and so in addition to the CIB, we had in our application that we're also applying for what's called the Community Facilities Grant through USDA. And USDA's been evaluating that, and what we had put is that if we didn't get that grant, then we would use our savings to compensate that lack of, so. But what I can do as a refresher, I'll send those numbers specific to council as well, just so you have those numbers fresh as well, so.
Okay, any other questions for David? Okay, finance report, Kim.
Finance report is in your packet. If you have any questions for me, that would be the and also the final fiscal year 2022 council report.
Do you know, and so it says that we were up 6% over last year. Do you remember what it was last year over the previous year? I mean, because we've been trending up, yeah.
It's like 11.
2020
wasn't
is
it?
such a funny year.
It was with,
It's a really hard one to compare to. I didn't run those numbers.
no, you're good. I just was curious.
The fiscal audit is scheduled for the week of the 8th of August.
What do you need for that?
They'll need to see you at some point.
What if I am not here? I will be here the 8th. So if I could do, when is it, the 8th or the, I'm leaving the 9th. So if I could come the 8th.
Sometime.
Okay, any other questions for Kim on the finance report? Okay. We're good to move on, or does everyone want to look for a minute? Don't want to leave if we have questions.
The baseball revenue shows a lot lower. Just curious about that. And the softball's way high.
So when those go in, they all come in together. And because of the way they collect them down there, and then we take the number and calculate what has to move from one to the other based on the number of participants. And then also in that softball one is the co-ed league.
Oh, okay.
And you'll see that number. If I was to run this again at the end of the month, that revenue would drop on that because we just paid the high school for running that program for us. So that could be what that goes through there.
Okay. Public Works Project Status Report, Terry.
Mayor Council, the July report is in your packet. Not really a lot of anything new. Any questions I can answer?
What's the water problem south of town?
Service line leak to that Reed Hirsch shop out in the state highway wells right under the curb and gutter. We had to pull some curb.
Is it back on now?
Yeah, temporary. We'll probably go out to dig further out the highway and replace the service, or we'll just have another leak. It's no galvanized service line. So,
Where's that out?
just south of 7-Eleven
work. Okay.
on that east side of the road.
Okay.
Kind of between there and the old car wash, I guess.
So the power project's on hold until the NTUA finalizes some home site leases?
Yeah,
Those
so, well, I mean, and that's even more of a Navajo Nation task list thing. They're trying to get those home site leases all done. And kind of sorting out who the residents really are, make sure they have all that in order. And then they wanted to do a project to clean up out there too, remove old trailers, tires, what have you. So that was just holding it up a little bit.
Is our portion done?
We are done.
So they can hook up to our,
Yeah, we need to have
Master meter.
UAMPS meter guy come down and do a little bit of work, but they can't do that till there's actual load on the.
and they'll run it from there to their homes, but that's held up.
Correct.
So the city's not holding up what's happening out there.
And it could start happening as soon as mid-August.
Good.
So that's what we're hearing.
Okay.
Well, I hope that does.
Yeah, I know
Lot
Bountiful
of
City has
donuts.
been interested as part of the Light the Navajo program in doing that work. They have a power board member in Bountiful that's part of Rotary International, specific to stuff on the reservation. I think on Navajo reservation, so he's been heavily involved. I think you'll see Bountiful City have line workers out there doing that overhead distribution.
The monies that we have matching the transportation, did we get all that finalized and everybody's happy? And
Yeah, so if you remember, council member, that's gonna be kind of post-performance, so we need to get the project done, and then we can invoice them once we need to complete $406,000 worth of work, and then we can invoice for them. And we anticipate that will happen next construction season, 2003.
Okay.
Very good.
Oh, yeah, I forgot all about that, Dave. So we have a well problem up at well A. We don't have continuity down the hall, which means either the conductor, over 1,000 feet of electrical cable has a short somewhere, or the motor itself. And so we're gonna pull the pump. We've got water well services are able to come down and do that. We've been having a hard time getting anybody that can pull that. There's a lot of well companies don't do wells that deep, 1,000 feet. And then just availability. So that's going to be right about $21,000, $7,000 to mow down, $7,000 to pull. I mean, well drillers are really sophisticated, they break it in thirds or whatever, but $7,000 to pull the pump and see what's wrong, and then $7,000 to put it back down the hole. But we're gonna have some additional cost depending on what's wrong, and we won't know that until we get it pulled. I can pull up those numbers real quick, but
I remember what. they
You've
were.
got 'em?
Yeah, so you want me to just?
go ahead, please.
So I was able to approve the 21,000 to mobilize the well driller to come down. And if it's the motor, it's gonna be, it's 29,000 to replace the motor. If it's the cable, it's about 62,000, I think 62.5 plus the cable. Given how far out this type of service is and how difficult it was to even find someone, if one of those needs to be replaced, then we would need to just let him move forward under basically an emergency provision with the purchasing policy. Because otherwise, if that's MIA, and maybe you can explain that part, the emergency part.
Yeah, so I guess firstly, there is a motor available in stock in Salt Lake. So if that was the problem, we could get a runner and get that down here while they're still here. We're gonna be like at least 8 weeks out on conductor. So it fits the emergency part of our procurement policy, in that if we were to have a catastrophic failure or something at the water treatment plant, we would really need that well up. So we'd like to get it up and running as quickly as we can. We don't anticipate that we'll have that problem, but we'd definitely want to move forward with getting a motor in while it could cost $7,000 to get those guys down here from northern Utah. And so we'd want to get that motor and get it in the hole while they're right here. If it's the conductor, they're going to leave and then come back. They can't afford to leave their rig just sitting there for 8+ weeks.
so we're looking at another 14,000 mobilization cost to get them back if it's.
Well, 7. So a mobilization typically is a both ways charge, get them here and. Yes, that's correct. So. I mean,
Cheaper for it to be the motor.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yeah, we hope that that is the case too. So we'll keep council updated on that as we go.
Is wire available?
No,
That's the 8 weeks.
yeah, that's 8 weeks minimum, so. Yeah, and wire, you know, as Dave said, it's 65,000, I mean, it's just really, that
There
big
it
of
is.
copper has just gone up significantly in price over the last few years. So I think we were about 40,000 last time we had to replace a conductor in a well, so. Those
How old
big
is-
wells are expensive to own.
How old is this conductor?
It should be 14 years, 2008 is when we put that. We have not replaced that conductor, so that's the original conductor in LA.
Is that good time frame for, I'm just curious.
I don't have enough experience with well conductor to even answer that question. Lynn.
Very sorry. Let me correct myself. The email that David Lyman sent us this morning, those costs, I gave you the total for both those things. So it's 23,100 for the motor, 39,500 if it were the wire, 62,600 if it was combined.
That's a
It's a little bit. It's not amazing.
That's
but
all
it's
I'm
a little bit.
remembering the 62,000 number.
We haven't had that experience where both of them might have had it at the same time. I suppose it's possible.
That's better than the first one.
Would it be better to replace the conductor even if it's not bad, where we've got it pulled out of the ground?
I mean, $40,000 and it's 21. Yeah, I mean,
You're halfway into it if they have to come back again.
you're halfway.
That's
I mean, we
like,
could
that's
evaluate that when he pulls it up.
like tearing the motor down and not replacing the crank because you're in it already, but, oh, it's not bad, let's not do it. No, you do it.
Can we look at that? I mean, I
We
think
can
it's
look
a-
at it and I'll let you guys know via email.
Cost versus
Please,
doing
that's
it
fine.
while they're there and saving
And if we
them.
could maybe see, I mean, to Councilmember Gosser's question, how long these last typically. I know that they always
We have
change.
to wait 8 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna
So
say.
that doesn't work.
It wouldn't matter.
We have to wait 8 weeks.
Yeah,
If it's the motor. that
Yeah,
can do
so
it.
we probably, based on that, we would.
Or do we-
put it right back down.
So do
Are
you,
they scheduled to come now? I mean, like, if we look at it and say it's worth it for us to wait the 8 weeks and get that ordered and then get the motor ordered and have them just come when all of everything is
We
here.
could do that. I could check with David. I'm not sure.
however, the purpose of him coming down right now is to evaluate
What's wrong?
what's wrong. And so, I don't know.
So they have to come to find out what it is.
Unless it is both,
Yeah,
and then we just have both here anyways.
I just think we
I mean,
deal.
I don't know that we want to. We could look at the length, the longest length of the 3 deep wells, I guess, and get a spare conductor and have it. And if we didn't need it, we could keep it. But, I mean, they get nicked or something, you can have a problem if there's manufacturer defect. Otherwise, they can last a long time too. I mean, I think well B, we've replaced the conductor in it because we had a problem, and well C, we're same age, 14 years, and we haven't had any issues, so.
Well, was born we did.
Barely on wells.
If we could, yeah. Yeah, let us know what you find out.
All right.
You just order it in like 8 weeks and have them come in and do both.
Yeah. All right. Down to our business items, resolution 726-2022-1. This is the fiscal year 2022 budget adjustment. And I don't know who's taking this, Kim or David. How's David on here?
Somehow I tapped my own name. Wasn't you can get Kim, I apologize.
I was so excited because I just wasn't even worried about it when I saw your name on there. I thought, go for it, Dave. So there is a need to do another budget adjustment. As you'll recall, the numbers that came in for the attorney were higher than what we had anticipated. So we need to do another adjustment to account for that overage. This doesn't typically happen, but this is just an odd end of the year kind of a situation. So we do need to move some more money from expenses that weren't used in the police department over to the attorney and to the court departments. once again, so.
And then the airport, what was that?
The airport was, there was a need, this isn't in addition, this is the same thing that was.
Oh,
on the
same thing,
report.
okay.
Yeah, that was for the truck and
Okay.
some of those kind of expenses, but there was additional in that. And the attorney that we didn't anticipate, we got those invoices late. And so we just need to make this other adjustment. I apologize.
So we're not having to amend the budget, we're just
We're
adjusting
just
what's
adjusting
existing.
that. Just moving some of that expense around in the general fund.
Any questions for Kim on this budget adjustment?
The transfer to capital projects is on here, but it hasn't changed.
Yeah, it has changed.
It has
because
changed.
The amount that the expense went up, then that savings isn't going to be able to be moved over. Does that make sense?
I thought you were pulling 42,000 from the fire department.
It is, but what was going to capital savings was the total what was left over of expenses. Now that we've increased that expense, then that reduces that amount going over to capital savings.
Can you explain the 82, the 266, and the 348?
The 82 is what we budgeted,
Okay.
and the 286 is what was left in the general fund
Okay.
last year. So we'll move that.
And the 348 is what was,
That is the total of 82 and 286, and that goes to capital project.
I got it. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? If not, I would take a motion.
The motion, we approve resolution 072-26-2022-01, adjusting the fiscal year 2022 budget.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's a motion from Councilmember Grover, seconded by Councilmember Bowers for resolution 726-2022-1, the fiscal year 2022 budget adjustment. Any questions on the motion? If there's none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
That is everyone. Okay, resolution 726-2022-2, State of Utah and NTUA MOU, David Johnson.
Okay, Mayor and Council, so this is obviously something we've been giving updates on in every council packet for the last little while. Kind of some recent developments. So prior, if you remember, the state had ARPA funding that they're setting aside. They're going to divide that in half, as well, essentially in half, 1.65 million to the city to go toward the construction of the new deep well, and 1.85 million to go toward Navajo Nation for the Westwater side of the infrastructure. Navajo Nation came forward and said, basically to the state, reallocate all of that to the city, the 3.5 million, and that they would secure the funding for the Westwater side of the project, which has already been secured essentially from the Navajo Nation. It's 5.5 million on that side of the project. So this MOU we received a couple drafts of the MOU over the past couple of months, but because of some of those changes, that MOU was updated. So the MOU I just talked about with 1.65, 1.85, I sent to you guys a couple months ago. That one was updated and I resent that to you last week. But we received it 2 or 3 weeks ago with the 3.5 million update. And what was I going to say with that? And the state had asked us, had asked all the parties to take it to their respective elected bodies by the end of the month. And so that's why you see it here tonight before you. Every party has already signed it, NTUA, Navajo Nation, the county, and it's executed everywhere else. And so this comes to you tonight to look it over. Some of the key points are that the full 3.5 million is coming to the state, or I'm sorry, coming from the state to the city. The MOU for NTUA is only for existing 29 lots, not for any future growth. The rate of water sale would follow the city policy and precedent equal to that of any other water users outside the city limits. So right now, our policy is that any culinary water users outside of city limits pays the double rate of residents. And that's the policy that we would enact in that sale. Also, what else was I going to mention? Oh, yes. So our policy on the front of the staff report talks about how our requirement per our policy is that a requester for culinary sale of water outside of city limits, that they have to be an established public utility recognized by the state, or some form of public utility recognized by the state. Likewise, that requester has to bring the full funding for the project to complete it. And they have to provide either an additional water source or existing water rights. The state is definitely coming to the table with construction and funding for an additional water source and the infrastructure respectively. And they are also trying to bring additional water rights on top of that as well. So they're coming to the table not just with one or the other, but
Where are the additional water rights coming from?
so that request has been made jointly from the city and Navajo Nation from the I want to say Conservancy District, right?
Water Conservancy.
Yeah, Water
That's not
Conservancy
a new
District.
source. If we get in a bind, that water's ours anyway,
No, the new water source would be the deep well.
but the water right, are we gonna have ownership of that water right? Is it gonna say, what are we saying? How many shares?
So I'll let Terry speak
It's
to
not
that.
shares. The plan is to request 50 acre feet of water.
So is that going to put the San Juan Water Conservancy at 150 acre feet
No,
instead of the
no,
200?
This is not recapture water. This would be water that would be Colorado River Basin, that's not proved up on, so realistically it'd be San Juan River. So it's not.
So that's the same rights that we got when we drilled the other 3 wells.
Well, those are underground water well, right? So that's kind of still different, yeah.
But I know that there was a transfer of fund or water rights from somewhere for us to drill the 3 wells that we already have.
No, the city owns underground water well rights that we filed on in the amount of, well, for the deep wells, it's 3 second foot. We have one water right that's 2 and one that's 1 second foot. And we haven't proved up on all of that yet. Neither water right is certificated. And so that's something we're working on. Developing this new water source will help us prove up on those. And so those underground water well rights are different from and separate from this. So we haven't made the request to the Water Conservancy District yet. We were waiting on a letter of support from the Navajo Nation. And so we didn't have that in time for the last Water Conservancy District Board meeting. So that will come at the next meeting, which is in September.
But we have that letter now.
Correct.
For that.
So it's good water in that, it's possibly usable. It's just, we're gonna figure out a way to get that, change application or whatever. The surface water rights up here on the Blue Mountain are obviously all allocated or taken care of. So you can't just change application to Johnson Creek or something because that water is owned essentially by either Blanding Irrigation or the Water Conservancy District or Blanding City already. If that kind of makes sense.
It just muddies the water a little bit for my brain.
I was going to say one other note is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had donated or had committed $500,000 toward West Water in general, both power and water. And there is remaining funding from that would also, if need be, go toward this side of the project, the Blanding side of the project. Also, Navajo Nation has secured $48,000 in a grant from Indian Health Services that would also be used toward the Blanding side of the project. And in addition, they're applying for a Dig Deep grant, which is a partner of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for an additional $100,000. So the funding in general, there's more than enough there to suffice. And Elder Todd Larkin is here from the church if you have any questions on that. And then we also have Tim Davis from the state to speak on the state side of things too.
Well, Terry's report also brings to light more issues that we may have down the future, we're gonna be stuck for maintenance and repairs. And if all three wells went down at the same time right now, we're in a world of hurt. If we have another well that's also drawing out of the same aquifers and they all go down, we're really in trouble.
So one thing for me is, when we asked Jones and DeMille to do our water study and we asked them what the best source of water was, their answer, and this was last meeting, their answer was a well. That's not our opinion. That's a lot of things combined together to come up with it. And I definitely trust that a lot more than myself, because I don't know details on these things, but
And I agree. You know, the wells, you said a well, you know, if not a well, then we have to start making plans for a new reservoir. You know, the reservoirs aren't cheap. I'm not sure how much they are, but I know they're not gonna be very cheap, but we're gonna have to have water at some point. You know,
So we have to have another well. We have to take care of that. I think it's a valid point, though. It
Yes.
adds more maintenance cost to the city, but we have to, when we asked them at the last meeting, should we have storage or should we have a source, which is a well? And they said a source, a well.
the well was the best for us.
How confident are we that we'll find a viable well?
Well, I'd like to hear what water quality man has to say.
I think we'll answer Kellen's question first. I mean, do you guys have something for that?
Level of confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always a risk that, you know, it's not gonna work out, but we're working with the hydrologist, Laughlin, they're the same ones who did the other wells. They're in Blanding, they're really familiar with, you know, with everything they need to know about the well. They have pretty good high confidence. In fact, the location by the treatment plant was one of their locations they had originally selected when they did their first 3 wells.
Thank you.
And just for public record, Scoop Flannery,
Oh, yeah.
Jones and Mills. Everyone else here knows.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Tim Davis, I'm the director of the Division of Drinking Water. Good to see you. One of the other things I would point out, because Terry's made this clear to me when we've been working on this project, is it's not just the well, but it's also arsenic treatment. And currently, the city doesn't have, for those other wells, doesn't have arsenic treatment. The full 3.5 million will make your existing waters even stretch further because of arsenic treatment, because you won't have to blend this water because you'll treat the arsenic out of it. So it gives you more resiliency and the ability to use the current water that you have stretch even further. So the division's goal or mission is to ensure that all Utahns have access to safe and reliable drinking water. This project, in the MOU you have in front of you, represents both the city and Westwater meeting that mission. So we're supportive of it. We've worked hard. David and Terry have had a couple amendments to the MOU throughout the last couple months. We've worked with all parties to bring them together. I'm excited that we can move all the $3.5 million of ARPA funding to the city for both the well and the treatment. One of the reasons for the timeline is just to get moving on it, get all the parties signed up. And again, in conversations with David and Terry, is the longer we wait, the more costs will continue to go up. So if we can get all the parties on board, this is 100% grant from the state. The Navajo Nation has appropriated $5.5 million. This funding that we're providing to you is exactly for these kind of projects, small, rural, disadvantaged areas. So I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thanks for coming down.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good to see you here. So when you say the arsenic treatment, are you saying that this treatment will have the ability to treat our other wells as well?
Not
Just this well?
just this well,
Okay.
but that means that currently, it's my understanding that you blend the groundwater with surface water. This water would not need
Would
to
not
be.
need that, okay. Darn it.
Try.
I know, I heard big picture things, but.
What if the funds provided don't meet the costs of the project?
The MOU does direct, so as David pointed out, there's other sources of funding that the Navajo Nation is working on securing. I believe that the church has also talked about securing additional funding, but the MOU ties the state to help the city find additional funding if you need it. Because the whole idea is that it's full 3.5 million. And that I believe that, looking at the estimate up to this point, that there's adequate funding available. I mean, our goal with the MOU as it stands today is the city won't see any additional costs because of this project, and that the Navajo Nation have stepped up to cover the full cost for Westwater.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Happy to answer any other questions you might have.
David, they're saying assist. If it comes to a point, assist. Where do we look? The lieutenant governor is on board that she's funding this project. But now all of a sudden, it's like, if there's additional costs, we'll assist you in finding funding. We're already having problems finding funding for projects that we already need.
So like Tim Davis mentioned, that the funding has already been found. If for some reason, like the costs go up exponentially, there's those other additional funds that I mentioned remaining from the power project through the church, the Dig Deep, the IHS. That with those fundings involved, that actually exceeds what our current, any gaps are, if that makes sense. In addition, Kendall Laws, and I can't remember the name of the new state agency that he works for. He was specifically asked to help fill out grants to assist us in filling out any kind of funding requests in behalf of the state for this project. And he had reached out to me several times when it was only the 1.65, but then when the Navajo Nation said, no, we'll reallocate the full 3.5. So I'm very confident as well that, I'm 100% confident that there is the funding there right now. If something were to fall through outside of the ARPA, I am very confident that it would still follow through, because these funds are allocated specific to this type of project. Whereas, like, for example, the Wellness Center, there's not specific grants necessarily for that. It's just a different beast. And this wouldn't take away from other opportunities that we're looking at in those other areas of concern. So.
And you estimated 3.5 million? That was your estimate?
Correct. I think we had a 20% contingency on that as well.
If things don't fall through, at least we adopt the resolution. What does that bind us to? What are we stuck with?
Essentially, by approving the MOU, it allows us to move forward to work through the process to officially get the funding. And then from there, it allows us actually to, because currently we're in preliminary engineering and the design phase, but we're kind of at a standstill right now with both of those because we don't have funding to dig the deep well to go about. And I'm speaking in very layman's terms of it. Scoot, is that?
No, you're exactly right. I mean, it's ready to go out to bid, but we've been waiting on getting an MOU signed before we do that. And one thing to keep in mind too is well drillers are out quite a ways right now. So if we go to put this to bid, it may be several months before we actually see drillers on site.
And that's part of the state's urgency to do it now.
And to me, I mean, for me, the level of assist is clear. I think that the Lieutenant Governor's office has done a lot. I think that your office has done a lot. The church has done a lot. The nation's done a lot. We've certainly done a lot. I think that the level of assist is there. That doesn't make it money show up, but it's put a lot there for me.
Commitment level has been-
Just the word assist puts up a red flag to me. This is, oh, we'll assist you. No, you guys, this was your project. We need to be on the receiving end if it was their project, their goal, their plan.
I think, well, the one thing I have to really take into consideration though is we're getting a well out of this, Eric. I mean, I know it's their project, but the city is getting a water source for our residents. And as hard as it is
There's a big if.
right, no, as hard as it is to look at all those what ifs, we are getting a water source that we would procure in the future anyway. We would go after and find, and we're getting that water source at, paid for. Now, granted, I remember when we used to look for 1.5 million to do a well. This is crazy to me, but that's the way I'm looking at this. Is as long as everything is equitable and fair for on the customer side and the rest of our residents around the city, then the city is getting a water source that we need.
Okay, we are, but look at the other aspect here. we've got another 150 homes on the other three sides of town. Are we ready to go dig a well for them too?
If they meet the same
Standard,
requirements that,
They're basically city residents. The same
Basically
thing we're
doesn't work
saying
for
here.
Yeah.
Huh?
Basically
they have
doesn't
to
work
meet the
though.
3 requirements that he stated, and you bet we would. So I want to go back to Eric's point about the water rights, though. This says that they're going to find water rights equivalent to 29 ERUs. But we haven't secured those yet. That's just, everybody's going to work together to get that. Now, we don't know where the water rights are going to come from.
Okay, so, I mean, we should have a little bit of a discussion on water rights. There's a lot of options. So the resolution that the council passed last September said that a water utility such as NTUA, if we were to sell water to them outside of our annexation area, that they need to bring a new water resource or water rights, not and. And so on this project, they're trying to do both. And we're looking to make a request to the San Juan Water Conservancy District for 50 acre feet. They own 25,000 acre feet in the Colorado River system, specifically San Juan River, that could be moved, of course. And so they, the Conservancy District may or may not give that water to us. We do have the letter of support from the Navajo Nation, asking that the Conservancy District and letting them know that they support us in this request. If that request were to fail, we have other options. We have our existing underground water right that we've not fully utilized. So that's one option. Another option is to just file for a new underground water right. And so that would be pretty easy to do. It could be approved. The priority filing date would be when we make that application. So with our other water rights are, precede that by quite a long ways in date. Another option would be for each of the property owners in Westwater, to file for a water right. And now I'm trying to tell you the best I can remember from Mark Stilson, who's the region engineer for water rights up here in Price for our area.
Sorry, can you just clarify one thing? I actually do not understand. So when when the water starts pumping out the ground, and we all pray that it does, those rights, those are taking from our water rights from certain things. It can be underground water rights. It can be the San Juan River water rights. Is that correct? When we pump water out of the ground?
You can do a change application that way. I'm not sure how much you could change San Juan River to underground,
So it's
surface
just,
water.
so when we
versus
pump it out of the ground, it's just underground water rights that we're taking. So we're not removing water rights from one of our other water right areas or reservoirs or whatever they are to use these water rights.
Yeah.
Okay.
In our area, the state engineer has not closed our area to new water rights. So you could buy a parcel of property in our area and you could drill a new well and apply for water.
Okay.
At some point, they'll close our aquifers here and that will no longer be possible. But today it is possible. So from a water rights standpoint, if I can just give you guys a little bit of information, I have not always been in favor of the Westwater project. And I really think we've worked dang hard on this for a long time. And the big con to doing this project is just that we're going to give water for 29 equivalent residential units. We're going to sell that outside of our boundary. The pros are a new water source, the redundancy there, the arsenic removal, helping our neighbors out here who have never had drinking water. A lot of our residents around on three sides don't currently have city water, but they do have water for the most part, not all. Some have to haul water. Dave could tell you about that a little bit. It's the council's decision on what the right way to go is, but there's just not a ton of downside to this. And
Because our residents will get additional water from that well as well.
There's a lot of
That's
upside
an
from
upside
that.
that you didn't
What we're gonna
mention. I want to make sure I understand that right. Okay.
So, we've worked hard on this MOU. I had some concerns with allowing future growth beyond the 29 ERUs. That's no longer in this current MOU.
That's actually was one of my questions. What happens if they do want to grow out there?
They would have to
They
approach the
would
city.
have to start some type of a
Another-
process. That'd be a
another
whole new
agreement.
discussion apart from what we're doing
So
today.
they'd have to have funding, all those requirements of this, so.
So,
And then I just had one change to the MOU on page 25 of our packet. It says that the Westwater and NTUA, the city will charge Westwater and NTUA water rates equal to rates paid by equivalent landing ratepayers.
So
We want that to
that
say
is-
outside city limit ratepayers.
So in talking to the state about that, they said whatever our policy and precedents or whatever our policy precedence is, would be the effect. So.
So when it says equivalent, they're speaking of outside resident
Exactly.
landing
case,
payers.
yeah, so that's a super good question. We have not done a water sales agreement yet. That's another agreement that we have
That's
to
the
work out
next step.
between Blanding City and NQA. It's outside of this MOU. I think the council should go into this MOU knowing that we're going to negotiate in good faith to make that work. This is a different type of a connection than we have currently for all of our customers. It's a wholesale connection. We're probably going to have to work pretty hard to make this look as close to what we're doing for our current customers and still be workable. As the council knows, we flush our system. We try and do it annually, and we're talking half an acre foot to an acre foot every year that we just dump on the ground in order to keep good water quality for all of our customers. NTUA is going to have some of those same needs, system flushing. That's all going to be metered and we're going to have to account for that. And we probably can't price them clear through the roof on that. We're experiencing a water leak. It's just a service leak down here south of town, but at some point NTUA is going to experience some water leaks. That water is going to go through a meter. We need to understand kind of how we're going to handle that in a fair and equitable manner. And so it's going to look a little bit different. I think it has to. So we probably should know that going into this MOU, that it's not going to be just full price, same as the residential rate for an out of city limits customer. It can look something like that, and we can probably come up with some really good ideas on how to make that look. But that's probably a conversation we're going to have in the future for another day.
I mean, just spitballing out loud. So the MOU or the water conveyance agreement, which would be the next step with the water sale, it could look something like, normal metered usage would be rate X, but during times of leak or flushing the system or things, it would be at X, that kind of thing. But those are some of the things we can talk through.
There's other language in there to protect us too, so that if there is a leak in the city, that they need to be very responsive on correcting that.
Well, this is a dead end system out there, right?
Yes, yes.
Can't be expanded.
Yeah, it won't be moved.
No, yeah, that's what I mean. It won't loop back.
Yeah.
So Councilmember, yes, the way that language in the MOU that you referenced is just to make sure that people are treated, that they're being treated equally like anyone else. The other piece is in the mutual commitments. This is exactly what Terry was saying. The parties would use the best reasonable efforts to enter into a definitive interlocal agreement relating to the project as soon as possible. So there's other agreements. This just brings everybody to this table, make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction, and then we can go bid. We can start moving forward with getting the city a new well, getting new arsenic treatment, and getting the people of Westwater water.
Does San Juan County need to be listed on the MOU?
They already have signed.
Why?
Oh, San Juan County is serving as the fiscal agent for the Westwater community. Why? Because they are not owned, and it's not tribal trust land. It's county land. It's county land. Well,
County
If I
land
can
owned by the
interject a little
Navajo
bit,
Nation.
my understanding is that NGA is working to be a water supplier in the state of Utah, which they are currently not. And so they can't receive the grant funding. And so San Juan County is a fiscal agent. They collect it and they disperse it, just goes through.
because they're a subdivision of the state, and that's right, there'll be a separate, because Westwater will be a separate public water system, will be distribution only water system. Planning will be delivering water to a master meter, and then that, the Westwater, the NTUA will be responsible for the system beyond that master meter.
Yeah, that money could have just as easily gone through the city, except for then it's kind of confusing, right? Because we're already part of the project. So it made sense. to
Makes
keep
it
that.
cleaner to me.
So the 5.5 million that the Navajo Nation has allocated already, so was that part of their huge budget hearing they did with all their ARPA funds just about 2 weeks ago?
Correct.
5.5 went to the, because one of my concerns is that we get this all done and they don't move forward with their portion. They're,
And if they did.
we're slow, but they're slower. And so, I just want to make sure that it's been allocated and we're going to get our part done and those people are going to get what they need. I'm sure you guys are going to help push that along, but.
We are, it has been appropriated by
The city would still have ownership of well, even if for some
It doesn't.
reason they
That
fail.
doesn't.
yeah, so the city will be able to move forward with your project regardless. The whole idea is that we're all moving in the same direction, but you'll be able to move forward with well, arsenic treatment, get all that done, get the master meter set up, and then when distribution is ready on the NQA, then the Westwater side will be able to serve supply.
Thank you.
I do, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Elder Larkin if he had anything that he wanted to add to the discussion, and
Thank you for being here as well.
Thank you for having me. I've been involved in this for years now. I'm just very pleased with the way it's turned out. I think there were some unusual feelings in this whole situation at one point in time. I think everybody's come together and tried to have a cooperative spirit. And in my mind, I've just watched the windows of heaven open. Who would have ever thought we'd have the state kicking in several $1 million for something? The Navajo Nations put more money towards this than I could have ever imagined. I just can't see a reason why you wouldn't want to go forward. You're going to get a well and a treatment facility. If these other wells can't meet arsenic spec, you'll have a source that has that capacity. I mean, in my mind, I've watched this thing wondering if it could ever be done and if it would ever happen. And now all of a sudden, all this money has come from all over the place. And I can't see how this is anything but a massive benefit to you. I guess I'm here representing the church. Obviously, they would like to see this happen, or they wouldn't have donated $500,000 to the project. That's neither here nor there, I understand, but speaking then as a representative of the church, we're definitely in favor of going forward with the MOU and trying to find a way to cooperate together. It's an unusual thing to think in the United States today. We have communities and places that don't have any water or power. And this is just a little tiny one of those. I mean, there's a lot of places like that around. And if we can do something to help somebody else to have a better and happier life, I can't see a reason not to do it. I know there's some challenges and some issues. There always will be in everything that we do. And there's some uncertainties. Just taking the track record so far, there's more money showed up for this thing at this point in time than I would have ever conceived or imagined in the beginning. And I suspect if we continue to try to do good for the world, heaven will open the way for us to do whatever is best for our Father in Heaven's children. That would be my only comment.
thanks, Elder Larkin. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Cheryl, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. I'm sure that you wonderful gentlemen understand that water is like gold to us, more valuable at times than gold. And that's why we take this so seriously. It's not that because we don't care about the people in Westwater. It's not that we don't care about everybody in our county who doesn't have water. It's just a resource that we have very limited ability to obtain and take care of. And so we have to make sure that we are doing our part as citizens of the city to watch over that water. Yeah. And then I think Eric, one of the things I think I foresee happening is that residents who are in certain circumstances, who are in the similar circumstances, who are outside of our city limits, who do not have water currently, are going to be not fully understand what just happened. They're not going to be fully informed. And I think we're going to have some people who are going to be upset when we tell them you have to follow these same guidelines, and they're going to wonder why we can't do the same for them. I absolutely think that's going to happen. I think it's something we have to take into consideration. I still think that, and I'm taking that very seriously. I still think that this is providing a water source to our residents that we cannot overlook. But I do think we have to take into consideration there are other people in the county who don't have water either. And maybe this will pave a way forward for other ways to get people the water and power that they need. I don't know, but I do care about them as well.
Thank you guys for coming down. I appreciate it. I think that this has been a project statewide for a long time, and I don't know if we have all had the same thoughts all the way through it. And I am glad that we have been able to discuss it. And if there is no further discussion, or questions, if there is, we can talk through those, but I would take a motion.
I'd make a motion that we adopt resolution number 07262022-2.
Second.
We'll do Councilmember
Second.
Ewald and Councilmember Gosser. Motion is to adopt resolution 726-2022-2, the state of Utah and NTUA MOU. Any questions on the motion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Councilmember Grover, how did you vote?
That silence abstention.
I believe
Oh, sorry.
we're selling ourselves down the river by allowing San Juan County, the state of Utah to dictate what we're doing. When the lawsuits start rolling in, I don't know how we deal with it. Because I think they'll come. I think they're gonna come from several different avenues. I have nothing against people having water. I have wells that I've drilled with my own dollars outside of city limits. I have children that have drilled wells. There are citizens around our community that have drilled their own wells to have water to supply. They haven't stood there waiting for the LDS Church, the state of Utah, the NTUA, the Navajo Nation. They pulled up their boots, done the work themselves to get what they wanted.
Are you voting no?
Yes.
All right, so the vote is Councilmember Bowers, Nilsson, Gosser, and Ewald were in favor. Councilmember Grover was opposed. The motion carries. That is the end of our agenda. I don't know of a need for a closed session. Is there a motion to adjourn? A motion by Councilmember Nilsson and a second by Councilmember Grover to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is everyone. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.